Hey guitar fam and friends, welcome to this easy song lesson. I'm pretty happy to bring you this one because I cannot believe it's taken me this long to actually make a video on this tune, Margaritaville. It's one of the standard best easy songs that you can learn. It only requires 3 chords, D, G, and A. We'll get to those in a second. And then you can get away with one strumming pattern throughout the entire song. There are multiple strumming patterns throughout the song, but you can get away with just one, and we'll go over that. Before we get into this, if you're having any trouble with the basics of the guitar, like making clean chords, changing chords smoothly, or strumming, go to guitarfam.com and create your complimentary account. You can go through loads of free courses there in the first module of all of our premium courses. And you can even schedule a personal private one-on-one lesson with me. The first one is complimentary, so there is no risk. Also, you can download the tab or the chord chart and get the jam track for this song, so make sure to do that too. All right, let's get into this. First things first, we need to look at what chords we're going to be using. So I'll give you the basics. Only 3 chord songs, so it's pretty easy. But there are some other little dressed up chords that you can use too. I'll go over those. The first one is just an open D major. Make sure to leave the little E and A strings out. Then an A major. So we're in the key of D, so the D would be the 1 chord. The A would be the 5 chord. And the last chord, the 3rd chord, is a G, which would be the 4 chord. So we're doing kind of a variation on a 1-4-5 progression throughout this entire song. So that's just good to be able to know. And if you want to look at the in full key of D major, it will be D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A major, B minor, C sharp diminished, and then D. So you can see we're using just the 1, 4, and 5 out of the key of D. So what are the extra little chords that we can use? We can use a D7, and you'll see where that comes in. So instead of just a regular D, we have a D7. Still just using these 4 strings, but instead of playing like this note right here, this root note of the chord, this D, is going to move back a whole step to the 1st fret of the B string, and you have to change your fingering a little bit to make that happen. So first finger will get the 1st fret of the B string, 3rd finger will get the 2nd fret of the high E, and your middle finger will get the 2nd fret of the G. So we use that one a little bit. The other one that I use a little bit here and there is just an A sus4. So just make a regular A, and that you put your pinky down on the 3rd fret of the B string and then take it off. That's the way I use it. I go just every now and then in the verses of the song. So keep an eye out for that one too. Another one you can do an A7. Sometimes he throws an A7 in there. So just make a regular A, and then take your finger off of the G string, whichever way you make this chord, just take your finger off of the G string and play it open. And that'll give you your A7 chord, your A dominant 7 chord. Okay, so you can get through this entire song with only 1 strumming pattern. And again, he uses different strumming patterns in the song, but I listened to the whole thing and came up with a consensus for myself, being like, if I was only going to use 1 strumming pattern in this entire song, what would I use? And since this is an easy song lesson, that's what we're going to stick with. And we're going to go with the classic down, down, up, up, down, up. So if you've never done that before, it's really good to separate this out and work on it by itself. Just down, down, up, up, down, up. And in order to do that, you have to have your constant strumming technique going. So get this grid of 8th notes lined up, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that never stops no matter what. That's your engine, your motor of your strumming. So you have down, down, up, up, down, up, and you're just digging in to the strings on 1, 2, and 3 and 4, and 1, 2, and 3 and 4, and down, down, up, up, down, up. So I would work on that by itself until it feels really second nature before you start to try to put it with the chords. As a matter of fact, work on each individual little element first. That's one of the secrets to learning songs, even if it's a more advanced tune. Work on just the chords. Make sure you can go to the D on its own right away. Make sure you can go to the A on its own right away, and this will be like your first practice point in your practice session, right? Make sure you can go to the G right away, because if you can't do that, with one of those chords, it's going to be a bottleneck. After that, work on changing between the chords. So just the first 2 chords, a D and an A, right? If you can't go to those individual chords, it's going to be really tough to switch chords, right? And then work on the next chord change, A to G, A to G, over and over, you know, just in your daily practice time. And then the last one, G to D. And then once you've spent a couple minutes on individual chords, switch it between two chords, then work on just down, down, up, down, up. And you might want to pull up a metronome once you start getting comfortable with that down, down, up, down, up. I believe the song is at around 124 beats per minute, so start slower like 90 and work your way up to 124. And then you can put them all together. You'll have all the elements, and it won't be feeling like you're tackling so many challenges at once. You'll be more, you have the skills that you need, the individual skills to play through this entire song. So let's get into the individual parts of the song now. Start with the intro, the part that goes. And I'll show you that riff later. If you want to learn that, it'll be at the end of the video, right before the full playthrough. That's also at the end of the video if you want to see what the song sounds like all the way through. But it's a 5-bar phrase, so 5 measures, and you just play your down, down, up, down, up for each chord, at least once for each chord. I'll show you what I mean. So you have one measure of D, just down, down, up, down, up. And then G, one measure, down, down, up, down, up. And then A for one measure, down, down, up, down, up. And then you have 2 measures of D. You have an extra bar of D here. Usually phrases are even in pop songs like this, like 4 bars, but there's an extra bar of D, so 2 bars of D at the end. Again. So that whole intro will be 1, 2, 3, 4. G, A, 2 bars of D. Okay, then we get into the verse. Every time you have a verse in the song, verses 1, 2, and 3, they're always the same. So that's kind of nice. It just starts off with 6 measures of D. So play your strumming pattern 6 times. It's 3, it's 4, 5. Okay, that's 6. And one thing I do is my thumb comes over and mutes the low E and A strings in case I accidentally hit them. They don't ring out. So that might be something you want to incorporate as well. From there, you move to an A chord, a 5 chord in the key of D, and play 8 full measures of an A chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And yeah, you really have to keep count. One thing that helps is just listening to the song a lot and taking your cues from the lyrics that go by as to when to change chords. The next measure goes to a D major for 1 measure. So you're strumming pattern 1 time, and then I switch to a D7 chord. And that D7 chord is just for 1 measure, and it's important because it's a setup to get into the chorus of the song. So that's the entire verse. Anytime you have a verse for verses 1, 2, and 3, that is what you're going to play. Let me play the whole verse right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here comes the A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you go to a D, and a D7. Okay, so a couple things you can do to dress this up are for the strumming pattern, you can hit the single bass note, the single lowest bass note in whatever chord you're playing. So if I'm playing a D, I can go down, just the individual bass note, down, up, down, up. Okay. Another thing you can do is accent the 2 and the 4, just dig in a little bit more. And we're lucky because the strumming pattern has downstrokes on 2 and 4, so you can just dig into your downstrokes a little harder. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but let me take it from what is just the straight strumming pattern that's kind of a little bit boring and shapeless, something like this, to something that's a little more interesting. So just... Okay, then we can throw that single bass note in. And then the single bass note and the accent on 2 and 4. So that sounds a lot better than just... At least to me, sometimes you want that, may want that, sometimes you may not want that. So pick whatever skill level you're comfortable with that. Just do the straight strumming pattern or those little embellishments for the pattern. You can do the same thing on the A, hit that low A string. And I'm alternating bass notes there, but you don't have to, you can stick to just the A. And one thing that I end up doing a lot is when I switch back to the D at the end of the verses, I end up doing just a little walk up. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, just like that. So all I'm doing is open A string, second fret of the A, my middle finger, pinky, fourth fret of the A, and then on the 1, I hit that D. Right? So that whole thing together with the strumming and the walk up, say the last 2 measures of A before going into the chorus and then into the D. Here you go, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'll dress it up a little bit. You can do that. If you want to keep it super simple, you can just do the regular strumming pattern too. All right, let's get into the chorus now. The good news is every time you see the chorus, you're going to be playing the same thing again, which is nice. Once you learn it once, you just repeat it and rubber stamp it. So you start off on a G. You just do your strumming pattern for 1 measure. Same thing, I'm hitting that low bass note by itself if you want. Accenting 2 and 4. And then A for 1 measure. Then a D for 1 measure. Then a D7 for 1 measure. Or you can stay on the D, either one works. Then repeat that phrase again, those 4 bars. So G for 1 measure, A for 1 measure, D for 1 measure, D7 for 1 measure. Then the next little 4-bar phrase is this: G for 1 measure, A for 1 measure. And here's where it changes. And this is some people claim that there's a, and then you have a one man to blame. So you have a D for just 2 beats, and like your strumming pattern stop, just hit a half note, 1, 2, and then an A for 2 beats, 2, sorry, 3, 4. And then the next measure is just 1 whole note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then it kicks back into the last 4 bars, kick into the main strumming pattern again. So you go to an A, 1, 2, for 2 measures, and then a D for 2 measures. Okay, these are pretty long chord progressions, so just take it one little section at a time. Work on that chord progression, listen to the song a lot until you can memorize it, and then move on to the next one. That'll make it easier to chunk it up like that. Let me play the entire course. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sit down again. D, D7, G, A, here comes a D, half note, whole note, 2, 3, 4, A, back, D. Okay, we'll get into the full layout of the song in a little bit, but for now, just know that you do the intro, verse 1, chorus 1, and then there's a repeat sign. You go back and do verse 2, chorus 2, play the exact same thing, and then it goes into the bridge of the song, which is like a mix of the first part of the verse and the second half of the chorus. Let's go through that real quick. And then all it is that steel drum or flute solo. So it starts off just on a D for 6 measures. So it starts off the same way a verse would. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you move to an A just for 2 measures this time. 1, 2. And here's where it switches to like the second half of the chorus. You go to a G for 1 measure, A for 1 measure, and then it has the woman to blame, that part again. So D, 2, A, 4, G for a whole measure. And then just like you're finishing the chorus, A for 2 measures. then D for 2 measures. Okay, from there you just play through verse 3 and chorus 3 again, just like you normally would. Nothing really changes. Play a verse and a chorus again. And when you get to the end of the chorus 3, something changes. You go 1 on the brain, 2 measures of A, and 2 measures of G, just like normal. But when you hit here, after that 2 measures of D, you do a little tag, a restatement of that last line. You go G, A, for 1 measure, and then another 1, and then you have 2 measures of A, and then it kind of stops right there and moves right to the outro of the song, which is just like the intro, but instead of being a 5-bar song, it's just 4-bar song, but it's the same progression. You just go D, G for 1 measure, A for 1 measure, and then this 4th measure just goes 1 on a D, 2 on an A, 3, 4 on a D. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just kind of let it glide off out there into the sunset. There you go. So let me play that 3rd chorus for you, and I'll do that tag along with the outro for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. D7, say that again. G, A, 2 measures of D, tag, right? 2 measures of A, outro. So when in doubt for something like this, just listen to the song a lot until you can kind of hum along to it. That'll help you play through the chord changes a lot better. And of course, you can pull up the chord chart that we have for you and just kind of follow along, being sure to count out loud if you need to until you're really confident about where you're going. Let's go through the order of the song now so you know exactly what's coming at you. So we start off with the intro, which is just a 5-bar, so don't forget that extra bar D at the end. Then you go into verse 1, which is 16 bars. It's 6 bars of D, 8 bars of A, and 2 bars of D, or you can look at that those last 2 bars as 1 bar of D and 1 bar of D7. From there, you go to the chorus, which is just 16 bars, work on that progression on its own. And that's the basic meat of the song. Once you finish chorus 1, you take the repeat sign back to the beginning of the verse and play verse 2 and chorus 2. Once you reach the end of chorus 2, you play through the little bridge solo, which is 16 bars long, and it's a mix of the first part of the verse and the second half of the chorus. After that, play verse 3 and chorus 3, and there's nothing different there. It's just like verse 1 and 2, and then chorus 1 and 2. After chorus 3, you have a little 6-bar tag where you restate, some people claim that there's a... So be careful for that. Don't let it take you by surprise. And then you have, after that little tag, you have the intro, which is just... the outro, which is just like the intro, but instead of that extra bar of D at the end, you just end on that 4th bar with a D, A, D. Okay, that's it for the bulk of the song, but I wanted to show you the little intro riff too, just in case that's something you're interested in learning how to play. If not, just skip to the end of the video and you can see the entire playthrough of this song. But this little intro riff is a great example of how knowing how to harmonize a major guitar skill can really help you write harmony lines like the one contained in this little part in the intro. All it is, it's like we're in the key of D major, right? All I'm doing is taking and harmonizing this D major scale. So I'm going D, E, F sharp, G, and I'm taking those notes and I'm putting the chords that go with them to play this harmony. So if I have a D and I move this up to an E, the next note in the scale, that chord that goes along with that is a minor. So I'm using a D minor shape to play an E minor chord. Then I move that E up to an F sharp, the 3, and I'm still playing a minor triad because the 3 chord in major keys, the naturally occurring chord there is a minor chord too. So an F sharp minor will be the naturally occurring chord. Then G, move it up to the 4th scale degree, a G there, and that's major. So I'm using this D major shape to play through all the chords in the key of D major up to G, and really just harmonize them to play what we call a chord scale. And this is super useful to get to know your keys. But I'm not using the whole shape, I'm using just the top 2 notes. And if you were just learning this riff and you if you just learned that, then it'd be almost like, okay, well, I learned the pattern and where to put my fingers, but I really didn't learn much else. But when you look at it as taking the chord scale from the key of D major, using just D major and D minor shapes all the way up, then it becomes something, not just a pattern that you learned, but a concept that you can use for other songs too, on how to harmonize lines. So we're taking this first little part, we use just the F sharp minor, and we use just the top 2 notes from this D minor shape 3 times, then slide that down to where it would be an E minor, and play it just once. And I'm seeing this shape the whole time, but I'm only using the top 2 notes. And then I slide that back up to an F sharp minor, and that's the main phrase. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 1, just da, 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 da. And I end up with a shape of you know, a whole step spread or 2 fret spread, index finger on the high E string, 3rd finger on the B string, and that's my shape that I use. Right? And then when I move up to that last little phrase, I'm thinking about this D major shape, but my root note is on a G, but I'm still using my index finger. I kind of collapse my index finger down to where there isn't a fret between. When you go up to that G, it's actually just 3 times you play. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1. So the whole thing is 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1. And I'm not talking about the counting for the measures or anything. I'm just talking about how many times you hit that. So you listen to it a lot until you can sing it, and then just plug those shapes in. What you're going to end up realizing, if you're anything like me, is I really had to program in for this kind of stuff when I was first learning it, what it felt like to have a fret in between or no fret in between. You know, just on adjacent frets with that 1st and 3rd finger. You get really used to moving those around and, you know, collapsing it down to a major or a minor at will. And you could think about a really good exercise is to just go through the key of D major with the actual shape. So D major, E minor using the D minor shape, F sharp minor using the D minor shape, G minor, or G major using the G major shape. You can keep going, A major using the D shape, B minor using the D shape, and then the C diminished looks like that. And then you go back to a D. Okay, that is it for this video. Here is the full performance of the song. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Better yet, go to guitarfam.com, create your complimentary account, and schedule that first private one-on-one lesson with me. Leave a comment below also with some suggestions for which easy songs you'd like to learn in the future. Bye.
Nibbling on sponge cake, watching the sun bake. All of those tourists covered with oil, strumming my 6th string on my front porch swing. Smell those shrimp, they're beginning to boil. Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it's nobody's fault. Don't know the reason, stayed here all nothing to show but this brand new tattoo. But it's a real beauty, a Mexican cutie. How it got here, I haven't a clue. Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame. Now I think, well, it could be my fault. I blew out my flip-flop, stepped on a prop top, cut my heel, had to cruise on back home. But there's booze in the blender, and soon it will render that frozen concoction that helps me hang on. Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know